Mike, with just a couple days left in training camp here in Latrobe, what are some of your priorities and some of the final things you'd like to get done before you break camp?
Well, my personal focus is to make sure we get these two padded practices in today and tomorrow. Obviously navigating the weather. Today's the last install, so we'll highlight that in practice. With a competitive period there at the end with the red zone offense and defense competing. Then we'll have another call-up period too, just to kind of get in the flow of the game. Now that we have one game under our belt, to continue to maximize the opportunities of the substitution patterns and so forth. We need to be cleaner there. That was one of the things we want to focus on coming out of the last game. But yes, this is what training camp's for, taking advantage of this environment. Tomorrow's practice will be just all competition, offense and defense. So really want to get these last two padded practices in.
Mike, what was your evaluation of the offensive line in game one?
Well, I think it falls in line really with the team. I thought we were physical as a football team. I thought we established the play style that we wanted. It starts up front with the O-line and D-line. We just got to play our play style with more discipline. The personal fouls were, the number was outrageous. I just think of the production that we had. Was excellent. We were very productive against our opponent. So you just look at the things that you can take care of yourself. But I like the way we played up front. We had, you're always going to have some fundamental focal points, which you'll see highlighted in the individual drills. More probably tomorrow than today because we're installing today. But that's what this time of year is for. I think the pads have started to come down. I felt that a little bit at the end of last week. I was glad it showed up in the game too. So we just got to keep working, and that's why we want to try to work as many different combinations as possible. So you'll see some guys move around a little bit today. Just trying to work different combination of players together.
Mike, is that pad level something you were looking for in the game when you don't see it a whole lot here?
Definitely, it's all normal. I thought we were clearly high as a team, this time last week, and I thought we did a nice job. You can see in our the tightness of the combination blocks, and you can see it in in the D line, being square, getting off blocks. So that definitely showed up.
Is there anything in particular you want to see from Travis Homer, or what did you see from him?
Well, I mean, it's as we get into these battles that are going on each position, it's important for our players to be able to play all four down, and definitely Travis is one of them. And, I think everybody's excited about draft picks and, this and that. But, your value to play on special teams and offense and defense is important. But you have to be able to play on offensive defense and special teams. I mean, it just depends on how you want to look at it. So I don't like just to keep it, God, it's just special teams, or God, it's just on offense, unless his contract and his level, let's be real about it. It's just the facts of the matter. But so you have to have as many players as you can that play all four downs. So those are the conversations I'm sure you're looking at. And those are the ones we're having.
You talked right after we heard you about the difference in being an outdoor football team. Does that maybe make you a little bit more willing to try to practice in the rain out here?
Oh yeah, I have no problem in the rain. I go back to the quarterback drill days. You just, you're always throwing a bucket of water in there, at some point when you feel like you've gone too long, not handling the ball in inclement weather. And frankly, being a dome team for 5 years, I think I worried about it more then than I do now, because you get it. The only thing that's going to take me off the field is the lightning. I just don't think that's, if it's 8 miles, 8.5, that's close enough. So, it's just be practical about it. That's fine line between toughness and stupidity, and we've all straddled that. So let's not lie to each other. So
Now that you've had more time working with Drew Aller, what are you learning about how his skill set fits your offensive philosophy and some of the concepts that you believe in?
Well, I'll say this about Drew and really the whole room. Their abilities physically, fit any offense. So I think, as we get into this spot in camp, we need to really hone in on specifically, concepts we want to, as I look on primary, secondary, auxiliary, and so yeah, Drew can play through anything that we've asked him to do, conceptually.
Mike, as a defensive line, we've heard a lot of praise for how Patrick Graham has inserted himself into what they're working on and the excitement to work with him. What have you seen as far as what he infuses into a defensive lineman group that you've praised for their size and physicality?
I mean, it's really a philosophy that Patrick and I talked about since day one, and clearly at the end of the spring coming into training camp, because it's important for us as coaches, especially the head coach and the assistant head coach and the coordinators. If you bring a special, a skill set that you have a lot of experience in, you can't just throw that to the side when you become a coordinator. I went through this with Brian Angelico. I mean, he wants to spend time in a quarterback room, and it's that's fine. But I didn't bring him here to coach, to learn quarterback. I brought him here to be the offensive coordinator. But he has a special skill set as tight end, so he needs to be in the tight end room. It's important. I mean, he's done it a long time at a high level in that room. So same thing with Patrick. Patrick's he's coached multiple positions. He started on offense, but he's an exceptional defensive front coach, and that's where he cut his teeth. So it's important for those linemen to know that, and him to be in that room. And these conversations go back all the way to when you're building a staff, because when you build a staff, as far as the level of experience in your higher positions, and you got young guys you're excited about, but there's some growth in those guys. So it's important to, Patrick's in there by design, but also because of what he brings to the table. So, and I'm glad the players feel it.
In your years coaching, do you have a preference for D linemen when it comes to winning in penetration versus protecting the linebackers? Because sometimes that can be a style choice of a defense for how they want to use their defensive linemen.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I look at it more as a technique, and I think that, the defensive fronts, looking at it clearly from the offensive side of the ball and understanding why we do it from the defensive side of the ball, because, you want your, the techniques that you're asking your players to play with, also to be in line with their personal skill set, and particularly their, how they're built, physically. So, yes, there's times where, you want to penetrate, and there's times where you play with a more flat, square stance. But at the end of the day, particularly in first and second down, the low man, square man wins. It's just hands inside and those things, the feet in the block and coming off it. So to answer your question more, I think you need both, and obviously the most important thing, the linebacker play has to be engaged and in tune. And we talk about it here all the time. That's why there's many different combinations of players you can play with. That's where the time clocks and the fits and all that. That's why we're here. You want to get that rep as much as possible, because you want those linebackers to feel the penetration. Whether they're playing fast over the top or play behind the block when it's still square, and those types of things. So, but that's football. You can't have enough of it.
Mike, you have a history with Robert Tonyan. You brought him in, gave him a tryout for a minicamp.
Yeah.
What did you expect in this? He looked like the old Robert Tonyan.
Oh yeah, I had Robert as a young player. When he had some great years up there in Green Bay. Even after I left. So I had him as a promising young player, and he call him Bobby now, because he's that's what the players call him. But the biggest thing for Robert when he came in was really see if he was healthy. So the fact that he was out there was frankly a blessing for us. I mean, that's been an excellent signing, especially at the time that we got him. So he's having a hell of a camp, which is no surprise. It was great to see him healthy there in the mini camp, and he's doing a hell of a job.
Did you get a chance to check out? Did you get a chance to check out the home run derby yesterday, Mike?
Sure did. It was the longest first round in the history of home run derbies. I think it was an hour and 28 minutes.
Is that a lot of guys who wanted to participate?
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool, and it was a great workout. But I went to the 5:30 mass, so I missed the final. But I guess Eli really crushed it there at the end. So yeah, the guys had a great time. The food trucks, the whole atmosphere was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.